Welcome to the podcast where together, every Monday, we explore hospitality in its very broadest sense. From culture and cooking, cocktails and coffee, nutrition and farming, politics and animal welfare, organic and sustainability, family and business, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. Come and learn with me, Mark Cribb, about where our food and our drink comes from, and the businesses and, more importantly, the human beings that thrive on where we decide to spend our time and our money. Sign up to our weekly newsletter at humansofhospitality.co.uk and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. This week's guest is Ben Tish, the culinary director of Norma restaurant on Charlotte Street and the Stafford Hotel London in St James, both in London's West End. Now, although originally from Skegness, he's probably understandably more obsessed with Sicily and one day would love to move there. This has had a huge influence on his favourite style of food, and he's even written an awesome book called Moorish that you should definitely check out. It'll make you hungry. The photos of the dishes are incredible and capture the vibe of the bold spices and sun-soaked exotic tastes of North Africa, combined with the sun-kissed shores of the Mediterranean. I would love to be sat by the ocean in Med right now, especially since it's raining, but that's kind of tricky. So perhaps a trip to Ben's newish restaurant, Norma, will have to suffice. Now, Ben is actually only a chef because of fellow Skegness buddy Jason Atherton, who, if you're listening, Jason, really should come on the podcast. Now, Jason got Ben his first chef job, but I'll let Ben tell you the story. We also touch on his time at the Salt Yard and how a big influx of cash that he hoped would sort out his financial and restaurant dreams ended up ruining his love for the business and led to him planning on heading out on his own. But now he's found the best of both worlds, a good level of investment and the chance to open restaurants serving his style of food, including his latest venture into the world of dark kitchens and delivery through Gallio, a Mediterranean pizza idea that Ben has been working on. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the chat and hearing all about Ben's hospitality adventures, and if you do, don't forget to pick up the device you're listening on, scroll down in the app until you find the review section and hit 5 stars, and if you can, even leave a few words. The more good stuff you say, the better guests I can get on the show, and the more we all learn together. Easy. Thank you. Ben Tish, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Hugely appreciated. Can I just ask, where in the world are you, Ben? Are you at work or are you at the home? Or?
Yeah, no, I'm at work. I'm sat in the private dining room at Norma, which is our restaurant in Fitzrovia.
Okay, very nice. That's the one. Is that the top floor, is it? Am I right in saying 5 floors or something?
Yes, it's the top floor where we serve customers. Yeah, there's another floor above us, but that's our kind of staff and offices. But yeah, it's the top floor for customers.
Yeah, when I read 5 floors, I've got a restaurant just with a couple, 3 levels really. We've got a sort of first floor restaurant, mezzanine, ground floor, and all. It just, anytime I see a restaurant on multiple levels, it makes me have a little panic attack about the fact the dumb waiter only ever breaks down on a Friday and Saturday night. Oh, yeah. Is that the same with you?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, our dumb waiter doesn't even come up to this floor, so it only goes to the ground floor. So the kitchen's in the basement, obviously, and then we have our ground floor and first floor kind of seating and bar, and the dumbwaiter goes to those, but dumbwaiter doesn't reach the PDR floor, so the waiters have to go up to 3 floors to take the private dining food. But there you go.
Oh wow! Is that sort of the punishment shift?
Yeah, that's punishment shift. There's a lot to be said for having a beautiful Georgian townhouse as a restaurant, but there's also there's clearly some negatives about it as well in terms of logistics. So
the difference between the customer and the operator, I think, isn't it? Where you go, oh my God, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
We share a childhood upbringing in seaside towns as well, I think, Ben. So I'm a Bournemouth boy down on the coast, and you were a Skegness boy, is that right?
Skegness, yeah, Skegness, born and bred, and lived there till I was 18.
Wow.
17 actually. I mean, it was literally I wanted to get out as soon as I possibly could. Not that I loved there and all the rest of it, but it was I always had a fascination with London. From an early age, I was kind of going to London from like the age of 13, 14 with my mates to kind of buy records and clothes and things like that, day trips and whatnot. And I just said, I've got to move to London, whatever I do, whatever it takes. And so,
You left.
Yeah, but so I left. Yeah, but yeah, no, Skegness, love it. Yeah, I mean, go back as probably not as regular as I should. My family's there, but yeah, no, it's a lovely little place. Got lots of
Yeah.
memories.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't know it. I'd say I lived in London for 10 years as well, and ended up back in Bournemouth because I quite like living by the beach and walking my dog along the
Yeah,
sand. But
yeah, I did it.
I don't know Skegness, but I'll get there one day,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So your role then, culinary director of Norma and the Stafford Hotel. For those listening who don't know those venues, can you just explain a little bit about them, where they are, what they do?
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with the Stafford London, which is a very old school, beautiful old school hotel in the heart of St James's, just off Green Park. And yeah, it's quite a historic hotel. It's got kind of royal connections. It's it's charming in lots of ways. A lot of the staff have been there for years and years and years. There's a master sommelier that's been there for 45 years.
Yeah, is it Gino? Is that right?
Yes, it's Gino. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks incredible, the cellar.
Oh,
I had a little look on the website earlier,
yeah,
and I
no,
thought, oh my god, it looks absolutely stunning.
yeah, the cellar's amazing. I mean, it really is a kind of an attraction. It's kind of cavernous, spans the whole basement of the hotel, and it's like caves and kind of cobwebs and lots of kind of Chateau Latour, 64s or whatever it is, and it's incredible. So food, kind of F&B wise, there's the Game Bird restaurant, which is kind of it's a British restaurant. I wouldn't say it's a modern British restaurant. It's a British restaurant. We do kind of, classics. We think we do them pretty well there. So, steak and kidney pudding. We do. We have like a smoked salmon trolley. Lots of table service, although we're having to address a lot of that now. But It's an old school, but it's done in a kind of a cool, kind of contemporary way, but the food is kind of steeped in the classics. There's an American bar there as well, which is great. It's such a cool bar. It's got a big courtyard at the back of it, St James's, and I do kind of more my personal style of food there. So it's kind of Mediterranean snacks and tapas and some large plates as well. So we do that, and then Norma is a restaurant that opened last year in Fitzrovia, just on Charlotte Street, which is it's a project I've been working on for years. Not years, but a couple of years, and I was going to kind of do this on my own before I joined Stafford anyway. So we kind of we launched it, and it's great. It was great. Sicilian food, over 5 floors, Georgian townhouse. Great area, Fitzrovia. So it was a real hit. We really hit the ground running with it, and very busy and all the rest of it. 6 months in, and then obviously we got locked down. So we're just kind of in the process of looking how we're going to relaunch it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I always feel guilty. I feel we should just stop the podcast with the intros, because it's all normally, it was brilliant, everything was going well, and then all hell broke loose, and then I feel guilty because I'm going to make you talk about it in a minute. But as well as the restaurants, you've got a few books, but the most recent one, Moorish. The pictures in that book are absolutely stunning. It made me want to get on a plane. I'm not allowed to get on a plane, unfortunately, but absolutely incredible.
Books, love kind of the book side of things. Moorish came out last year, which was again just really a combination of all recipes, and from Spain, Italy, a bit of Portugal in there as well. But it's all like the kind of the Moorish and the North African influences in those countries. So mainly kind of the southern regions. It was a really, really nice book to do that one with photography. Chap called Chris Kirkham, who I've worked with for ages. So he really kind of gets the food and all the rest of it. So it's a really nice one to do that. And then I've just finished writing another one, which is out next year, which will be all about Sicily. So it's kind of a love letter to Sicily, and it's some influence from Norma, but mainly kind of I've tried to do kind of not so, because there's a lot of Sicilian cookbooks out there, and they're all quite the same. They've got the same kind of recipes in there. So I've tried to kind of really dig a bit deeper and do some of my own spins on things. So hopefully it'll be quite different. So
yeah, was lockdown useful in helping you finish that?
oh yeah, very much so, very much so. I mean, that was kind of one of the upsides was I was just able to get my head down, and I think I handed it in like a month early, which again is
Wow.
absolutely probably what's going on here. But obviously, I had the time and just doing some recipe testing at home, and yeah, it was.
There are some benefits to a pandemic, at least, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I've not been to Skegness, and I've also not been to Sicily. Not just picking people things that start with S, but what is it about Sicily apart from the annual couscous festival, which made me chuckle? What is it that you love about Sicily so much?
Yeah, I like the. It's a real contrast of. I mean, I think the fact that the history of Sicily is incredible. I mean, they've been invaded so many times by so many different kind of people and countries and so on for sustained periods of time. So you really get all this kind of mix of a weird mix of cultures and poverty brushing shoulders with kind of extreme wealth, and it's a real hodgepodge, but it kind of works together. So yeah, the food, that's kind of reflected in the food. It's kind of there's a real kind of North African influence there with the food, and spices and dried fruits, things that you'd expect to find kind of in Morocco, but they've kind of made it their own cuisine. So they've kind of used those ingredients and techniques, and then kind of put their own spin on things. And I don't know, it's just such a fascinating place, and I think not just the food, the fact that they've got. Not just the food. I think their attitude towards life, and that's kind of sets it apart, because it's all about their lunchtime, what they're drinking. That takes their family. That takes priority over everything. Over work and all that kind of thing. And it's just a really kind of refreshing. It's a refreshing way of life. I absolutely love it. In fact, I would like to move there. Oh, and they make probably the best wine in the world in Sicily, I would say, particularly around Mount Etna, because I think the terroir is just so amazing, and their volcanic kind of soil and so on. But I don't know. I think some of the best wines come from Sicily, certainly. So for me, it's paradise.
Amazing. Sounds awesome. You were there in February, is that right?
I went there in February. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I went there. Just to do a bit of research, and because that's my thing. So I try and go a couple of times a year if I can. So yeah, I went. I went in February. So I don't know when I'm going to be back next. Hopefully this year. I mean, it's all kind of clear there. I've got 2 or 3 people who work for me here from Sicily, and it's kind of all clear. And they've had very, very little COVID activity in Sicily. It's been very low key. So
really?
Really, yeah. It's been one of the lowest spots in kind of around the Mediterranean. Yeah,
that little bit of water between them and the Italian mainland doing its bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I will check it out, and like I say, certainly the pictures look good. So before we come back then into sort of COVID and Norma, we will focus on that just very briefly to touch on your history. You weren't really particularly interested in food when you were younger, albeit your parents were involved in it, but you did happen to have a mate who was rather nifty in the kitchen, Jason Atherton. Is it true that without him, you may not have ended up in this career?
No, 100%, 100%. I mean, I think as I was saying earlier, for me, it was all about getting out of Skegness and moving to London, and so I think I was kind of looking at any opportunity to do that as quickly as possible. I did a year of my A levels, dropped out, and then had a year kind of dossing about, for want of a better word, and then I can't remember how it came about, but yeah, I think Jason Atherton wasn't mates at the time. He was a bit older than me, but for a mate of a mate or something like that, we got talking, and it came about that it said, we should move to, if you want to move to London, become a chef. There's loads of jobs there. That kind of thing. It's like, okay, become a chef. Never really thought about that before. So spoke to my mum, got all kind of signed up to go to the local college. And I did that. Went to college. Didn't really like it. I have to say, it was a bit naff. And looking back on it, it wasn't a great college. Boston College, just outside of Skegness. But what opportunity came up at the time was so Jason Atherton moved back to Skegness for a while. So he worked in London from the age of 16 at the likes of Harvey's and Pierre Kaufman and all the rest of it. And then he moved back for a year, and he set up at a local golfing hotel in Skegness as head chef, looking for an apprentice. And my parents knew the owners and lots of connections. Anyway, I ended up working with Jason in Skegness for a year whilst going to college, and like his kind of work experience. And he was just, I know what you're saying, he was such an inspiring person to work for. You know, we were cooking this amazing food that nobody had seen the likes of it in Skegness. And to be honest, it wasn't very successful because nobody got the food. But it was all kind of, Marco Pierre White kind of, white heat type food. And I was absolutely blown away by it. It really kind of got me. And he's a very inspiring person anyway. And he's like, look, you've got to go to London. If you want to be a chef, you've got to go to London and kind of do that. I was like, okay, all right, well, I'll do it. So he kind of set me up and made some intros and all the rest of it, and managed to get my first job. I hadn't finished college by that time either, so it was just kind of I went with that 6 month college under my belt, and he got me my first position at the Ritz with David Nichols because he knew the sous chef there. So I did a year there, which I hated. I have to say, really did not like it.
Too formal, or?
Yeah, too formal. I was 18, and it was like thought I was Jack the Lad in Skegness, and then moved, and then basically it was pretty old school, draconian, the horror stories you hear about old school, hotel kitchens and things like it was all that, lots of bullying and all that kind of thing. Hang
on, before you carry on, I've just got to ask: Did that golf course have any idea? Like, have you been back, the two of you? The fact that you were both working there at the same time, because golf courses are quite often sort of bacon sandwich over over a corporate event and stuff like that. Have you been back and said, look what we've done?
Oh yeah, we go back quite a lot, and yeah, they know.
Have they got a poster of you two boys on the wall going that they learned it all here?
Yeah, not that I haven't seen it, but they may well have. I mean, they're proud of us, and we're proud of Skegness.
Okay,
but yeah,
I ran a golf course for a little while, so I'm just laughing. Funny enough, I employed a chef a few years later who was there. So so the Ritz didn't inspire you, but it was it was heading off to it was Italian restaurant, I think, was it that actually got you sort of excited about food? Yeah, no,
where it came was actually the next place I went to. So then after all that, so it was then Jason moved back to London. So that place in Skegness didn't work. So right, I'll come back to London, and we both ended up. He got me a job at a restaurant called Coast, which was just over not over the road from the Ritz on Albemarle Street. And Jason went in there as sous chef, and there was a head chef there called Stephen Terry, who's now got the Hardwick in Abergavenny, but amazing chef, worked for Marco, set up the canteen, all that kind of thing. And it was Pacific Rim cookery, Stephen had spent a lot of time in California working at like Chez Panisse and these kind of and those kind of places. And we did this restaurant called Coast, which was set up by Oliver Payton. He was the money man behind it. Groundbreaking restaurant. It was fantastic, and it was such a nice, very busy, very, very, very hard work. Even by Ritz standards, it was much longer hours and all sorts of things. But because it was such a nice environment and such a great team, everybody was kind of happy to do the hours, and that's kind of where I started to fall in love with food then, because it was a nice place where everybody cared about food and it wasn't hugely competitive and all those things. So that's kind of when I started to fall into it. And then worked at a couple more places. Worked for Marcus for a while. Worked with Marcus at when he was at Lauren J for a while, and bits and bobs. And then ended up basically where it all kind of properly started was I ended up working at a restaurant called El Duca, which is an Italian restaurant as sous chef, and it was on an interim thing. I was waiting for Jason to open another restaurant, and ended up staying at El Duca for 2.5 years. Starting as sous chef, ended up as head chef there, and just completely then that was kind of what all kind of made sense to me then. Italian food, simplicity, produce, seasonality, all those things that everybody bangs on about now. But then there wasn't that kind of stuff then. There was only a handful of places that were really doing seasonality properly and getting beautiful peaches in summer from Sicily and all that kind of thing. And that's one of the places, and that's kind of where it all kind of fell into place for me working there. Yeah.
Mm. Why did that make such a difference? That sort of following the seasons, provenance of food. What was it that excited you about that?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It was all that, and it was also that things tasted much better, and we were getting amazing deliveries of these seasonal things at the right time, and it was of course better. I don't know, just something clicked in my head. I guess it's what makes a chef go, down the fine dining route and want to put 58 things on one plate. Or what makes a chef, want to just put 2 or 3 things on? I guess it's down to the person. But I loved it, and I was inspired by the head chef there when I started. I was sous chef, and he was literally, it was I could hear him on the phone, and it had to be seasonal. And we were getting the lemons in that were kind of beautiful leafy lemons that like the likes you get from the Tour now. I'd never seen those before. We'd never got those, even working for Michelin star chefs. We'd never got lemons in like that, or it was if it was a lemon, it was a lemon. They didn't know there was different types of lemons. You know what I mean? And so it was just a completely different outlook. Don't get me wrong. The food that I was cooking when I was working with Jason and all those kind of, it was fantastic, but it wasn't. It was never about the produce really. It was all about the cooking and the plating, but we didn't really talk about, where that lemon came from or, where that meat came from. It just came from the butcher, and that all changed when I started working at El Duca. So,
do you think there's been a bigger shift in that sort of industry wide over the last few years as well?
Oh, yes, I mean, 100%. I think you go. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Everywhere. From the local pub in Skegness to, 3 Michelin star restaurant here now, it's all about naming the breed and doing all, and all that kind of thing. It's commonplace now. It really is. But it isn't it's not naturally a British way of looking at food. I think it's very much it's a Mediterranean. It's kind of, if you go to Mediterranean Italy, they are all about produce and even down to a home cook, wanting to know where things come from and, arguing with the market stall holder and that kind of thing. That's where that mentality comes from, and it's been kind of passed down. So
I think it's interesting because I think although it is the case now in a lot of restaurants, and it's probably not in a lot of restaurants as well, particularly maybe the sort of the growth of the casual dining sector, or maybe they pretend to be. But I know Henry Dimbleby's come out today, hasn't he, with his sort of national food strategy, and there was a couple of bits in there that really stood out. And one, and you mentioned it actually just now with Sicily and how long people spend dining, but it's that sort of shocking statistic that it's something like 2.5 to 3 hours a day eating in sort of continental Europe, and then it was something like an hour and 15 minutes in Britain. So although a lot of the restaurants have gone that way, it still feels that we've got this disconnect at home still. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think so. I mean, it's just I don't know how, that's kind of not really going to change. You know what I mean? There's so many factors involved in it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you take Sicily again as an example, it's so hot there, right? So you need to take your time doing things, more slowly and take, whereas here there's the climate, there's all sorts of things that affect kind of how you react around food and around other life activities. But yeah, I mean, I think I suppose we are heading in a positive direction, I would say. But I think we've got a long way to go. So.
Yeah. I have a lot of conversations with sort of producers of food, so not just sort of the operator end, I guess, but the farmers and I don't know, beekeepers and all sorts of stuff. And in fact, I was chatting to a guy from Riverford Organics a few weeks ago, and he sort of thinks that it's probably getting better and worse at the the same time, because there's clearly a lot of people who are starting to recognise the kind of the impact of modern agriculture on the environment and how what we eat is so important. But then there's a lot of people who are just driven by price, I guess, and that's been the slightly depressing thing in probably the oversupply of restaurants, I suppose, in the last few years. That's not always been at the quality end of the market.
But I also think, and I'm don't want to generalise here, but I think we also like the idea of it all more than the actual doing of it. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
we're very good at kind of, talking the talk, right? But I think, but ultimately we've kind of got this streak in us that likes convenience and fast, and particularly living in London, and it's so fast and that kind of thing. So I think I think we it's kind of not natural to us somehow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I think also we're reluctant to pay for that lemon with sort of leaves on it
Yeah,
that actually does taste better, because that was the other thing that jumped out. I only had a very quick look at the report. I've not read it properly yet,
yeah,
but I think it was something like 8% of our income goes on food in the UK, and it's something like 13% again in Spain or Italy or
yeah,
wherever it was referring to.
yeah.
And yeah, we just don't seem to necessarily give enough credence to that additional spend and
Quite,
quality, I suppose.
quite right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we can't fix that in the next 30 minutes,
No,
probably.
no.
Ben. But so just to go back to your journey a little bit, then what was the trigger for you to head off to Scotland? Because that looked like an absolutely stunning
Yeah,
location. But yeah, why leave London?
well, so that was an interesting one. So while I was at college, for that short kind of period, I think I actually said it was 6 months. It's probably a little bit longer, about 8 months, and did some work experience with Jason. One of the other things I did was spend a month in Scotland at a place called Culinary Hotel as part of my college training, and they've got a relationship with the hotel. So I did a month or so up there in the summer, and actually got on really well with the owners. Really liked it. I mean, I was only kind of again 18 or whatever, but I really enjoyed it. So anyway, while I was at El Duca, the owners completely by chance came in to the restaurant to eat, and I was in the restaurant, and I was like, oh, I can't believe it, wow, I haven't seen you for so long. And anyway, that was that, and this was kind of towards the end of my tenure at El Duca, and I was thinking about what next to do. So it was all kind of a bit serendipitous. But literally the next day, they called me and said, "Do you want? Look, we're looking for a head chef. Someone set a hotel kind of forward. Are you interested?" And it's a real long shot because I was based in London. I think I just got married at that stage. And anyway, long and short of it is, it happened, took the position, and it was a brilliant thing to do. I think I wanted to do it because of my because I really liked the hotel, and I really liked I really liked the owners. I think it was a real chance to kind of start get myself on the map there. And it already had a good reputation. I like the idea of it being, because it was really produce led up there, simply by choice. There was like very remote in those days. There's a couple of deliveries a week, if that. So you had to use local farms and all these kind of things just because you had to. So it was a really interesting proposition, and so I just decided to take it. My wife was behind it. We could do it. We had no other ties other than that. No kids, no mortgage at that stage. So we just did it, and within a month I was kind of up there. And it was. I think the first year was a bit challenging. In way, I was kind of like, oh, what have I done? And because it was very different. West Highland Hotel versus a super fast London restaurant. You can imagine the contrast between the two. And they're very different ways of doing things. But I think after the first year, I kind of got my head around it and loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. Yeah. It really was, and on so many levels. Again, I did well there. Without sounding arrogant, I did well there. Helped take it up a notch and was recognised for it. It was the most gorgeous place to live. It was very quiet in the winter, hectic in the summer, very seasonal. I learned lots of news. It was brilliant. Food wise, business wise. I bought a house up there that did really well. It was fantastic. And then 3 years of that, and then then came back to London. Yeah.
It is. It's a beautiful part of the world, isn't it? I have been to that area. If you were having to very much rely on sort of local produce, could you use that Mediterranean influence of food that you'd got into? Could you use that there, or did you have to follow the sort of more British style?
I did. Yeah. I think. Yes, I did more British, and also I have to say the customer base. So I kind of did. There was a bit of Mediterranean, certainly a bit of Mediterranean stuff going on there. But yeah, I kind of reverted. I think there I reverted probably back to the stuff that I was doing before El Duca. And but also some very, it's very seafood focused. So I was doing, doing lots of quite simple seafood stuff. But yeah, I used I had to use local produce, and it just seemed fitting for particularly for the restaurant. There was a restaurant, there was a bar, there was also to do slightly more kind of modern European kind of cuisine than Mediterranean, I suppose. So. But yeah, no, honestly, it was such a good move. I think a lot of people thought I was mad, and would only last long. And the first year was fun, but it was brilliant.
I took a look on the website, and as soon as I saw that incredible view out the window, I didn't think you were mad at all. In fact, you're probably the opposite. I thought you were slightly mad to give that up and come back to London. But yeah, what was the trigger? Did you get offered a job again by somebody walking into a restaurant in Scotland?
I think I was, reading. I mean, this was for kind of social media then, but I think I was missing. I was still very young. I wasn't. I think I was like 28 or 29. And I kind of thought, this is great, but it's very comfortable. I could, there wasn't really going to be, I wasn't really going to be going anywhere. Let's face it. The hotel had reached its, they weren't going to open anything else or whatever. And I just thought it's time. And my wife at the time was even younger than me. So she was kind of ready to go back, and she was kind of a history of art. She done a history of art degree and all the rest of it, and she wanted to kind of wasn't much really to do.
Bit more culture required.
Yeah, exactly that. So we were missing a bit of we were young, so it was kind of get back to London. I was in touch with my mates and lots of opportunities. And yeah, so London was calling again, and it was right. I came back with a really fresh kind of approach to it, and then got back, and I think I had about 6 months when I moved back to London. I had about 5 or 6 months off, just eating out and catching up with people. I didn't do anything, and then it was Salt Yard. That's when I got into Salt Yard.
Yeah, where you stayed for quite a long time, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, 12 years.
12 years. Yeah. Good going. Opened quite a lot of venues. What's your sort of favourite, memories or learnings about your time there? Because that must have been a real period of development.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was really good. I think, so many great memories. But I think, MB Yard was a particular highlight, I think, because of, really got into this, submerging myself in Spanish cuisine whilst it was Italy and Spain, a mix of, but I hadn't had a huge amount of experience of the Spanish side of things. So I absolutely submerged myself in Spanish cuisine and books and culture, and, went traveling around Spain. But MB Yard in particular, because of the grill, we were one of the first restaurants to kind of do, set up, a proper charcoal wood grill and kind of cook like that. I think, pretty much every restaurant I know has got one now. And that was our thing. And, we talked about the charcoal that we were using and different types of charcoal and wood and all that. And at the time it was brand new, and we really got... I really got into that, and I think that was fantastic. We wrote a book. I wrote a book off the back of that, off the back of that restaurant, Grill Smoke Barbecue, and yeah, that was a highlight. But it was all good. I think we slightly towards the end. I'm quite happy to say it, but we slightly lost our way in terms of. We'd kind of sold. So I was a partner and director and all the rest of it. We sold some of the business to venture capitalists, and then that kind of changed the direction as you would expect. But at the time, it was kind of this is the right thing to do. We're going to all be millionaires and all that kind of thing. And then,
was the offer of the VCs, was that to grow the business further? Was that the plan?
Yeah, it was to grow the business further and expand and all that. And from being essentially a family business, even with 4 sites, or 3 sites, whatever it was, 4 sites, we that was the whole ethos of Salt Yard Group. It was family run. We could make decisions quickly and react quickly and all the rest of it. And then as soon as the VCs came on board and one of the partners left, it changed the dynamic. It just did. So and
that seems to happen a lot, I think, doesn't it? Is that one of the key learnings? Is it because sometimes I was chatting to the Honest Burgers guys a little while ago, and they were really happy with the sort of VCs they had involved, and they were sort of on a joint trajectory, I suppose. But most of the time, I seem to hear these negative stories about a real change in culture and focus, and all of a sudden, board meetings become a terrifying experience rather than a chance for a cup of coffee and a strategy. What was your, I don't know, I suppose your thoughts on it, across the industry? Do you think that became a little bit of a problem? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think, I kind of think what you're going in for it for. I mean, we wanted to expand, but, so you say like Honest Burgers, I would imagine great, because it's a great streamlined concept, and what they're going to do is another Honest Burger, and another Honest Burger, so they're going to roll out an Honest Burger concept. And that, for me, that suits the VC kind of, framework perfectly. But for us, we still didn't, and what we'd said to the VCs in the beginning is that we don't want to do a load of salt yards. We want to grow this family of restaurants. So, they're all individual. Opera Tavern was a pub, and there was a theme and a thread. But because of that, it just kind of jarred with the whole VC thing. So we wanted to do one place different. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a rollout, is what I'm saying. And I think that was a big part of the problem.
Were they involved pre or post Veneta?
No, pre Veneta. Yeah. No, Veneta was, I guess, the kind of the nail in the coffin. So that was a big risk, that site, and it cost us an absolute arm and a leg. It did, it was very different from what we'd done with the rest of it in terms of spend. A lot of the restaurants we haven't spent a huge amount on them to set them up. Just made them look as nice as we could. But Veneta, we had very high finishes and all the rest of it. Location was a big question mark. It still is. God, I'm glad. It's a real odd area, that. But yeah, it was. And then obviously once that wasn't working, then you're under pressure. You're under pressure from the VCs. Once something's not working, they want to know why, and so it all just got a bit horrible. And then that was kind of the time to go.
Yeah, good learning opportunity, though, I suppose, because it's a pretty common sort of trajectory in our industry over the last few years, I guess, isn't it? So good to get it out of the way and learn from it, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't think I'd put myself in that situation again. I don't think it's. I just wouldn't. That's a chapter gone. But I talk to people about it, and can give advice on it. But I think you have to go in for it the right reasons. I don't think we went into it. We having thought it through properly, to be honest.
Yeah, because it is often a temptation, I think, isn't it? If you've got 3 or 4, decent venues, and you think, yeah, let's. I speak from experience of having 3 or 4 and haven't gone for the for investment, but often think, oh yeah, I wonder what we'd achieved if we had. But yeah, just couldn't bring myself to think about exactly that. I suppose those board meetings with somebody else in control or putting pressure on, and I suppose fundamentally taking the fun out of it. So the benefit is cash, and I guess if you get the right people, because in some ways you've sort of teamed up with the Stafford. Who owns the Stafford?
So there's one guy who owns it. He's an Egyptian chap called Dr. Ahmedi. Oh God, I can't even pronounce his second name, to be honest with you. But I can anyway. But
don't worry.
There's one guy who owns the group. So the group. So there's a group. So the Stafford Hotel. Stafford Collection also owns Northcote Manor up in Lancashire, right. Which has got a Michelin star. Norma. And he's got lots of businesses all over the world.
Yeah. I suppose the reason I ask is because I know you thought about going out and setting up on your own, I suppose, and then this opportunity came along. And is that beneficial? Because presumably, having somebody with some cash behind you is advantageous as long as the relationship is right.
Exactly that. I mean, I had it already, and I'd had a site and everything before I joined the Stafford Collection, and how it came about. The site, by the way, fell through, and I was kind of looking around, and it was really there's a chap called Stuart Proctor he's the CEO of the group. He was a mutual friend of friends of mine, Jason being one of them, and Joe Barnes from Source Communications, and they hooked me and Stuart up to see if there's any kind of synergy, and this is how we came upon this together. So I got the concept ready. And it was like, okay, well, let's kind of do this. But my role was also to kind of oversee the Stafford and other future projects that we're doing. Another project that actually will launch next month is something I've been working on. Is called Gallio, which is a pizza concept, and initially it's takeaway. We've got Dark Kitchen in Waterloo. It's kind of like Mediterranean pizza and antipasti and things, takeaway delivery, and then that will become a bricks and mortar when the time's right. So,
Okay.
but
Is that using the sort of Deliveroo mechanism? Is it rather than
delivery mechanism, Dark Kitchen? But it's a nice concept. It's kind of when I don't want to say healthy pizzas, but wholesome pizzas, I guess. And there's a real Mediterranean vibe, very much kind of my type of food. Everything homemade, antipasti, salads, things like that. Homemade desserts.
Yeah, nice. Nice to be able to test stuff like that. I suppose if you're thinking bricks and mortar at some point,
Yeah.
quite nice to put it out into the digital ether, I suppose, and give it a test as well.
Yeah. So that's all. So so my role is Norma is kind of obviously my focus. That's where I'm based, but part of my role is to oversee other businesses. I think things will obviously slowed now for this year, but there was always going to be an appetite with this group to grow businesses. So that's
yeah. So feels more like a partnership then, presumably.
Yeah.
Nice. So the Norma idea then, even if you'd done your own restaurant and that had come through, would that have felt very much the same? Were you pretty much given the freedom with a sort of design and menu to do it as per your vision?
Yeah, certainly. I think menu-wise, menu-wise and all that kind of thing, 100%. I think in terms of design, and it's don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Norma. It's great, but I think because of the luxury feel of the Stafford and the Stafford collection is a luxury collection. The owner wanted it to feel quite luxurious, and that's a nice thing to have. So the finish at Norma is probably not something I would have done on my own. Probably wouldn't have been able to afford it, to be honest with you. But it's still nice. It's still kind of stylish, cool, all those things. But there is a real luxe feel to it, and that's probably not something I would have, as I've said, would have done only because I couldn't afford it. But that's a nice problem to have, if you know what I mean. It's a nice thing to have. But no, it feels very much my concept. So, it is my concept. So,
yeah. Menu wise, though, that's much more in line with your style. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, this is the Game Bird. Was existing anyway. I kind of took it on. There's a head executive chef at the hotel, Joseph Rogulski, who basically looks after everything over there. I'm kind of I'm a soundboard for him, and I get involved in menu tastings and direction and all that kind of thing. But that's his, he's very much the Game Bird food. That's his passion. So I let him get on with that because it's authentic, it's natural. But yeah, Norma's my thing, and Galio as well. It's kind of very much my style of food. I love kind of Mediterranean food. It's my thing.
Yeah. So customer-wise, then at the Norma, so I know the Stafford is, am I right in saying, has got sort of predominantly US-centric kind of guests, I guess. Is a lot of the Norma guest people coming from the hotel, or has it actually found its sort of niche in the local market as well?
Yeah, I think more niche in the local market. I mean, obviously, in the good old days, we will see the good old days again, but, the hotel was absolutely pumping, and, guests were staying... I think the average is something like 2.5 nights or something like that. Guests were staying. So our concierges were sending, they'd have a meal in the Game Bird or the American bar, and then our concierges were sending them over to Scott's or Cheeky's or whatever it was. The part of the idea to do a restaurant from the owner's perspective was, okay, well, let's send them to one of our restaurants, which is Norma over in Fitzrovia. So we get a bit of that. But yeah, largely it's become a destination in its own right, and it's been very popular in Fitzrovia. I guess there's existing fans of myself and stuff I've done in the past. And yeah, no, it's found its own niche. We've got a nice database, and that's nice to see. We've opened up bookings and so on for next week, and we've got a good amount of our regulars coming back, and there's no passing trade here at the minute, so we won't be getting any walk-ins for the next few weeks until things open up here. So it is all going to be people booking and coming. Yeah, it's not going to be walk-in.
Yeah, tough place. So yeah, location. That was the reason for not opening from the 4th of July. Then basically, is it the city is fundamentally still very quiet?
Yeah, oh, very much so. I mean, I think, don't get me wrong, people have opened around the West End from the 4th of July. I think mainly in, from what I've seen, I live in East London, and kind of Victoria Park, that neck of the woods, and everywhere seems quite busy. Weekends and things like that, and there's a lot of footfall, and it's because people are staying in their neighbourhoods, and but kind of happy to go out. But yeah, the West End is still very quiet, and there was part of us where should we wait till September even to kind of open and just keep the furlough going and all that. But anyway, we've decided jointly to open next week, and we'll see how it goes. We're pleasantly surprised with the bookings, and we've had some good news today that there will be the councils are providing outside seating on the roads in parts of London, like in Soho. So cordoning off kind of sections of the road in areas like Charlotte Street and Dean Street in Soho. And so we will be gaining outside seating. We only had six to begin with. We'll be gaining between 8 and 12 seats outside in 2 weeks' time, which is gold, basically.
Yeah. Is that for diners as well, or is that just for drinking? Or?
No, dining. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. That's really good, isn't it? It's nice to see. That I don't know. All too often, it feels as a sector that we're not particularly helped, but there does seem to have been some recognition in the last few months about the importance of hospitality. I guess.
Yeah. Well, third biggest industry, isn't it? I think there's been a lot of drum banging about it, but it is. It's a big part of the industry. So so fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed. What's your thoughts and expectations then for the next few months? And I suppose, is there anything you would like to see happen? I don't know whether that's government led or consumer led, but yeah, what's going to help?
What's going to help? Well, I think the key things are. I mean, rent's obviously a big one. That's I think the biggest one. I think I'll be honest with you. I think the government has done a lot. To be honest, I don't see. I'm not expecting a huge amount more from the government, to be honest. I don't know if they can assist some way in getting this rent structure, but ultimately it's got to be a rent based on revenue. I think is the only way that we're going to, certainly for the next couple of years. I can't see how, we're going to kind of get out of it without that one. And I think a lot of people are saying the same, particularly around the West End where the rents are high and all that. So that may come straight from landlords, or it may need some intervention from the government with the landlords. There's lots of discussion about how it's going on at the minute, but I think for us, it's the rent thing is key. I'm not going to, I've spent probably the past 3 months speculating about what's going to happen and what's not going to happen and all the rest of it. Nobody's got a bloody clue, to be honest with you. Nobody has got a clue what is going to happen. And so I'm very much, being quite pragmatic about it now. We'll take it a week at a time. We're opening up. We've got a skeleton team. We've still got people on furlough, and we'll hopefully bring back as and when, as soon as we can. We've got a short menu. We're going to give it a whirl. It sounds quite relaxed. There's been definitely some not relaxed times, but I'm just, we're just going to have to take it a week at a time.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly the right approach, and I spoke to a lot of people during lockdown about what they were doing and how they were managing and keeping in touch with the teams and all that kind of stuff. But now I think we're all also just a little bit exhausted and go, right, well, we can't just sit here, can we? Let's open the doors and having dealt with that level of trauma and sort of hour by hour decisions, I think now it's just a case of like, let's try it.
Exactly that. I think the most exhausting bit has been the past 6 weeks for me. Yeah. 6 weeks, whatever it is, with the discussions about what we're going to do, what we're not going to do, the Zoom calls, the this, the that, all that has been absolutely. It really has. That's been it. So that's where I've come to the conclusion. Right, let's just get it open, and we will do our best to make it work and see how we go. Make the staff the focus, bring everybody back as soon as we can, make sure they're safe. And that's that's it. That's it. To be honest.
Have you had to make many changes operationally? Have you lost many covers? Or
Yeah, a few. I mean, I think we've probably lost about a quarter covers. I mean, it is a tight site. So we've had somebody in to have a look for us. Yeah, we lost some covers. We're going to get some temporary screens. What else? That's kind of it in the main.
You're not in the camp of everybody sort of behind masks and perspex and all that kind of stuff. Are you keeping it reasonably relaxed? Or
yeah, we are. Well, yeah. So we're providing masks to staff, but some of them want to wear them, some of them don't, and we're not going to make the staff wear it. It's not I've been eating out obviously and see what other people are doing, and it's just a real mixed bag of what people are doing. So I think we will have everything at the ready. We are going to have to put perspex screens in certain areas because we have to. So that is something we have to do. We've done a shortened menu, obviously, that we will play it by ear on a daily basis, see what's what. We've got
what's the primary motivation for reducing the menu?
Well, reduce the menu just so we can cope with it on a so to reduce waste, I suppose. We've got a very tight team, certainly for August. We've got a plan to bring people back September or before if it's busy, but. So we've got a tight team that then can manage this reduced menu, hopefully, and just kind of streamline, just basically streamline everything, really. And yeah, that's kind of it, really. We're going to do a takeaway delivery thing in a couple of weeks once we get kind of open and up and running. We've got all that lined up. I mean, we're a lot of people did it during the lockdown and towards the end of lockdown. We didn't. I think we're quite late to the party with it, to be honest with you. I mean, we'll offer it. We're going to do pasta kits and things like that, which some people are doing already, and we'll probably have an online shop to help bolster revenue. So yeah, we're going to do bits like that, but it's all an extension of what we're doing anyway. So.
Yeah, well, I think the key thing is not to waste too much cash by launching all of that stuff, isn't it? Sometimes it's better to sit back and get open, see what the response is, and then strategize.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, we've done all sorts. I know you were fairly open about wanting to do more and open more places. Was there anything else that was in the pipeline? And I suppose across the wider industry, do you think there's going to be a reluctance to invest for a little while, or do you think this is going to create some opportunities and some space in the hospitality market?
Well, from our perspective, I mean, we were looking at doing another Norma. Whatever. Whether it was just another Norma or we've got a concept for like a Norma cafe, which is a bit more like kind of princey type concept. But I mean, that's all going to be on that. That is all on hold now. I don't know. I think there will be a reluctance. I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to open. I wouldn't want to open something now. I think the uncertainty of another spike in COVID and so on. I mean, I think it's I personally think it's quite likely, particularly how we carry on around these parts. But I think it's uncertainty, and I think a lot of people working from home still, and probably continue to work from home. I think that's the thing. So I personally don't think it's ever going to be quite where we were, even in a couple of years' time. It's a world changer, I think. In terms of business, that would be my thing. And I think it's going to be quite slow. I mean, listen, there will be, people, restaurants closing and cheap rents to pick up and pop-ups and things like that. There will be opportunities, but I think for us now, we're just going to lock down and focus on this Gallio concept. So,
yeah, much more turbulent times, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think? Do you think there's going to be?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of so I'm coastal, I guess, and grateful. The difficult, as you know from your time in Scotland, we're so seasonal. Make all of your cash in the summer,
Yeah,
lose it all again in the winter, and that roller coaster is frustrating. So in some ways, I've been sort of envious of cities and high streets for years. I've chatted to people with restaurants on the high street where they're sort of, their best month and worst month revenue fluctuation is 8%, and
mm,
mine's more like 800%.
yeah,
So I feel lucky at the moment that I'm on the coast. I've got a couple of big terraces, one that opens right onto the beach,
nice.
and I think the next couple of months are probably okay. And we're certainly finding at the moment, that people want to sit outside.
Yeah,
I'm very nervous about. I mean, the winters are tough for us anyway, but I'm nervous, like you said, second spike.
yeah,
I just think even if there isn't one, I just think it's got harder and harder, out of the cities where there isn't, the West End and the entertainment, and you haven't got that now either. But, we're now competing with Deliveroo, we're competing with Netflix and with Amazon. People aren't bored at home anymore.
yeah,
They've got the internet and YouTube. So it
yeah,
was already hard to get people to go outside on a cold, wet, rainy day.
yeah,
And I think if you add the nervousness about, central heating and all the windows shut and inevitably sitting on top of each other a little bit more, yeah, I'm very nervous about the winter. And for us, it's all about just trying to survive in some way until spring next year, and hoping things return a little bit to normal. But yeah, I think I think I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed.
No, no,
Unfortunately, yeah.
nervous times. On to more sort of positive stuff though, and before, conscious of time, so we're drawing to an end. But I know you've always been very much into the sort of education. You work with I think David Ross is an education trust. You teach at various college. What's your motivation for for working with the kids, or with the older kind of adults and learning?
I just think I think it's I've always found that. I think my mum was a school teacher, and she was kind of involved in kind of lots of things extracurricular to that, to kind of training and so on. So maybe I got that from my mum. But yeah, I don't know. I just think I just like to see people progress, genuinely, and it's an authentic thing. I like to see people progress. I like to see people learn. And kind of get new skills and things like that. I just think it's a pleasurable thing to do. I think certainly for our industry, there's as well, the past few years there's been such a skill shortage, and difficult to get difficult to get staff and so on, which is not a problem now, I have to say. But
Yeah, exactly. One extreme to the other, isn't it?
I know. But so there's been an element of that as well, in terms of trying to inspire people to get into the catering industry, and and show them what what an amazing business it can be, and all that kind of thing. So I suppose there's an element of a selfish element to it as well. The more people in the industry, the more people there are available to employ. But it is genuinely just like to see people progress and learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you recommend it as a sector? Because I guess again, you alluded to this back in the Ritz kind of old school kitchen culture, and then you finding better kitchen cultures. Do you think the cultures in kitchens has generally changed? And do would you recommend that people go into this sector?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still some tough places out there, but it's definitely changed. I mean, I think it's yeah, I think well, it's kind of had to, really, because again, it was a backlash of the skill shortage. A lot of people not wanting to get into the industry, just because of the bad reputation of it. So people have had to look at how they're operating their kitchens and their working environment, and nurture from within as well. And that all comes from having a nice working environment. So yes, it's definitely changed. It's so important to have a a nice kind of healthy environment, and the hours and things like that. I mean, those days have gone. You can't have people doing 70, 80 hours a week, and all that kind of thing. It's just not right. And it was just a weird thing anyway, that we thought we needed to do that in the hospitality industry. And, we've all done those stupid hours and whatnot. So we make a point of making sure people do proper hours. And, we were looking at all sorts of things before lockdown. Obviously this has kind of changed things slightly, but, we were looking to get people on, kind of 6 shifts a week and all that, and with the same pay and all this kind of thing. So I don't know where we're going to go from here, to be honest. It's just taking it a week at a time at the minute. But
yeah, well, no, it's a big change, because the flip side is, I suppose, it does seem with a lot of people, we've lost that kind of that hunger, and I guess I don't even think we were pretending, but it was often about what you learn, not what you earn, particularly in the early days, and putting in the time and the hours, and then there seemed to be this sort of slight sense of expectation and wanting to sort of, I don't know, jump up through the ranks of the kitchen a lot quicker, I suppose, without putting the hours in. It's a tricky balance to get right, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the kind of whole TV thing has kind of got a lot to answer for in that respect. He wants to be a head chef immediately, and but I don't know. I don't know. I think there's still, it all comes out in the wash, doesn't it? You do 2 years training and become a head chef. It's not unless there's odd exception, it's not really going to work out, is it? So I think hard, putting let's say hard work, solid work in, and doing the right time with a good chef and learning your trade is going to have a lot. It's going to be a long lasting career, I think. So
yeah. And final one, Ben, before we head off. But what is it you've got against the sweet potato?
The sweet potato, I don't know. It's too. Do you know what? Very easy. It's too sweet. It is too sweet for a savoury food. There you go.
I just read in the caterer, I think, when I was looking you up, that I can't even remember what the question was, but it's one of your dislikes, basically. So
too sweet for a savoury food. There you go.
Okay, there you go. So it's off. It's not on the menu.
No, not. On the menu.
Yeah. Okay, it's all too often flown over from America anyway, so it's probably not environmentally friendly. Right. Well, look, Ben, great to catch up, great to hear about your journey. I really hope it goes well. I've heard amazing things about Norma. I've not been yet, but I will be making the effort to come up and check it out. I really hope that the reopening goes well. Where should people go if they want to follow your journey and your adventure, Ben? Where's the best place for them to go?
Instagram, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it. So yeah, it's ben.tish. I'm spend far too much time on Instagram. So
do you? Okay, perfect. Well, I'll put a link up from the show notes for the podcast as well on the website. But yeah, good luck. So what day is it? It's Wednesday. You open on Monday, yeah? Best of luck. By the time this goes out, you will be open.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks so much, Ben. Cheers.
Bye.
So there you have it. I very much hope you enjoyed my catch up with Ben. And as I said, head over to humansofhospitality.co.uk where you will find links on the show notes to his Instagram and his Twitter account and the web link for Norma. And there are some beautiful photos also on his Instagram account, so well worth checking out. And don't forget, if you can do me a favour and buy me a thank you beer or any extra cash that I promise I will only put into the very best kit and the time to find the best guests, you can become a Patreon supporter of this podcast. Just head over to the website and click on the big Patreon button at the top. Okay, thank you so much. I will be back in a week's time with another awesome human of hospitality.